Were those all individuals that you interviewed?
I don't recall.
Do you recall if you interviewed Bill Barr?
I don't recall.
Okay. Is there any individual on that list that you recall interviewing?
I guess what I'm communicating to you is we could have interviewed all, none, or some of them. I have no independent recollection. I don't recall. I don't recall. What I'm saying is I don't remember the call.
Wow, you are full of it.
Our boy Nathan Wade just sat in front of the Georgia Senate committee investigating Fani Willis. He has managed to confirm that this prosecution was never what they said it was. We're going to talk about a few clips from this hearing to tell you everything that you need to know about why Fani Willis is completely screwed. Let's get into it. So let's set this up. The Georgia State Senate has been running an oversight investigation into how Willis hired special prosecutors, how taxpayer money was spent, and whether personal relationships and outside coordination compromised the Trump election interference case. This is the hearing where Nathan Wade finally sits down under oath to answer questions. Or tries to. What you're about to see is a man who billed Fulton County's taxpayers over $650,000, led the biggest prosecution in Georgia history, and somehow can't remember any of it. Let's go.
Just an investigation. Had you ever prosecuted a felony offense before this case?
Prosecuted or defended?
Prosecuted.
Again, in my open, I indicate that I've defended cases ranging from murder on down. Murder, rape, robbery, aggravated assault. I've defended all those cases. I know from the hearing, the disqualification hearing, the way that I was painted was as if I had no trial experience or wasn't even familiar with the courtroom. Quite to the contrary. I've defended lots of cases all over the state.
You just had never prosecuted before?
I had prosecuted. I'd never prosecuted this type of case. In fact, no one has.
Yeah. Any involvement in RICO?
And no one has ever defended this case.
Any involvement in RICO
prosecutions?
No, sir.
No, sir. I got all my training at that time.
Now, many of us already know this, but in case you don't know, this man just admitted under oath in front of the Georgia State Senate that he never prosecuted a felony. Not a murder, not an assault, not a drug case, nothing. He had zero RICO experience. He literally got his training after being hired. Think about what that means. Fani Willis had the most consequential prosecution in Georgia history, a RICO case against a president, former at the time, of the United States. And she handed it to a man who had to Google how RICO works after he got the job. And notice what he does there. He tries to redirect to his defense work. I have defended murder cases. Cool. But that's like the opposite job. There's a different types of skill sets when you think about it. That's like saying I should be your heart surgeon because, well, I usually do brain surgery, but I've seen a lot of surgeries on the heart. I can do it. I mean, it doesn't work that way. Then he hits us with the quote, in fact, no one has, unquote. That's his defense. Nobody's ever prosecuted a former president under Georgia RICO before, so my inexperience doesn't matter. But that's exactly why it matters more. If you're going to bring a case that's never been brought before, you need your best people, not your boyfriend who said no twice before you had to convince him. We know this from the hearing because former lawyers were asked and declined. Many people were asked and declined. Wade was the backup to the backup, and Fulton County taxpayers paid him over $650,000 to learn on the job. That's your taxpayer money on this hiring decision.
Do you recall either you or your staff working with the Jan 6 committee to prepare for interviews with key witnesses?
No.
Okay. In the body of the article, it says that committee staff quietly met with lawyers and agents working for Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis in mid-April of 2022, just as she prepared to convene a special grand jury investigation. In the previously unreported meeting, the Jan 6 committee aides let the district attorney's team review but not keep a limited set of evidence they had gathered. Do you recall a meeting with the committee where there was access given to evidence that you were able to view but not retain?
I do recall that.
Okay. Can you tell me about that meeting? Do you recall where that meeting was?
That meeting was in Washington, D.C.
So that was in Washington, D.C. Who went to D.C. with you on that trip?
I remember an investigator, but I don't recall specifically which investigator went. And I do recall that there were maybe 3 lawyers from the team, but I don't recall specifically who they were.
Okay. So this lawyer, you said helped, essentially showed y'all evidence, not help, but showed you guys evidence that had been gathered and did not allow you to retain that evidence. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So first he starts by saying no, he doesn't recall working for the January 6th committee. Then they show him an article about it. And then suddenly the memory starts jogging back. Oh yeah, that meeting in Washington, D.C. with 3 lawyers and an investigator on Fulton County's taxpayer dime. And they would show evidence they could look at but couldn't keep copies of. Think about the structure. Why would the committee let them view evidence but can't retain it? Because if there was no paper trail, there's no record of what was shared. That's how coordination works when people know they shouldn't be coordinating at all. And this wasn't some rogue trip. Willis's own deputy DA, Michael Hill, was emailing the committee's chief investigating counsel directly, asking for a, quote, brief audience with Congressman Thompson, unquote. The January 6th committee's top investigator, Tim Hiffey, then offered to provide, quote unquote, oral summaries of witness testimony and access to documents, quote unquote, in camera. Real meaning in private. So a partisan congressional committee was privately briefing a county's DA prosecution on a team on non-public evidence that other law enforcement agencies couldn't even have access to. And Wade just confirmed it under oath. He tried to deny it at first, but got confronted with evidence, then said, yeah, that happened. This is what Fani Willis's independent prosecution actually looks like. 4 people flying to DC to get fed information behind closed doors. That don't sound like justice, that sounds like an operation.
This is a letter on White House stationery. This letter, Mr. Wade, was part of an open records request that was just fulfilled about 2 or 3 weeks ago. America First Legal and Just the News had filed an open records request that was fought in court. I think that before there was a final ruling on that, there was 8,000 pages that were released. Have you seen this letter before from the White House to Mr. Donald Wakeford?
I'm not recalling. I won't say that I've never seen it, but if it's dated 2022 and it came to Mr. Wakeford, I'm certain that I was made aware of it.
He's a staff member. Was he part of your team?
Yes.
Okay. This is where President Biden waived the executive privilege with respect to the testimony of former Trump administration officials before the special purpose grand jury, which would be your grand jury, or the DA's grand jury. Did you discuss with Mr. Wakeford, or did you request from Mr. Wakeford to seek the waiver of privilege?
I don't recall how it came about.
Okay.
In my opinion, this is the biggest moment of the entire hearing. The committee puts a letter on White House stationery on the screen. It's from Biden's special counselor, Richard Sauber, addressed to Wakeford, who is on Wade's team, telling him that the Biden White House will not invoke executive privilege for former Trump's administration officials testifying before the Georgia grand jury. Let me explain why this is a big deal. Executive privilege has been a foundational protection for presidential communications since the beginning of this country. They all use it. It's the most powerful legal shield any president has. And Biden waived it, not for Congress, not for Jack Smith's federal case, for a county district attorney in Georgia. Without that waiver, Willis could not have compelled Trump's former White House officials to testify before her grand jury. Biden removed that wall. And Wade's response is, quote unquote, I won't say I never seen it. That's not a denial. That's a man choosing his words very carefully because he knows that that letter connects the White House directly to the prosecution. And when they ask him whether he requested Wakeford to seek that waiver, his answer is, I don't recall how it came about. The lead prosecutor on the biggest case in your office doesn't know how the White House ended up clearing the path for his key witness. Either he's lying, or Willis kept her own lead prosecutor in the dark about the most important piece of the puzzle. Both answers are completely devastating.
Assistant Attorney General Stephen Engel and Inspector General Michael Horowitz. Were those all individuals that you interviewed?
I don't recall.
Do you recall if you interviewed Bill Barr?
I don't recall.
Okay. Is there any individual on that list that you recall interviewing?
I guess what I'm communicating to you is we could have interviewed all, none, or some of them. I have no independent recollection of any of these people.
I have no independent recollection of any of these people. These people. That's the former Attorney General of the United States, the acting Attorney General, the acting Deputy Attorney General, the Inspector General, These are the highest ranking law enforcement officials in the country. And the man who was leading the prosecution, billing $250 an hour on taxpayer money, cannot tell you whether he sat in the room with him or not. You don't forget meeting Bill Barr. You don't forget interviewing the former head of the Department of Justice in connection with the biggest case of your career. That doesn't leave your memory unless you were never really in charge, unless you had a figurehead collecting a check while other people, the White House, the DOJ, the January 6th committee, were actually building the case and then handing it to you on a platter. Because that's what it looks like. That's what this hearing confirms. Wade can't recall because Wade wasn't driving. He was along for the ride, billing 8 hours at a time for meetings that he can't describe, evidence that he can't remember viewing, and witnesses he can't remember interviewing. $650,000, zero felony experience, zero RICO experience, and zero memory of the most important moments of the case. That's who Fani Willis trusted with our tax dollars. That's who she chose over every qualified prosecutor in Georgia. And that reason alone is why she's completely screwed.
What's your question, sir?
I wanted your reaction to the fact that the judge ultimately dismissed your case. After you guys have been disqualified, Pete Skandalakis ended up investigating.
I stand by the work that we did. You know, I doubt that anyone other than this team has had ample amount of time and opportunity to review all the evidence in this case. It is impossible to do that within such a short frame of time. So anyone who says that they reviewed this case in its entirety, they're not being forthcoming because it's not possible to do so. My reaction is I stand by our work. I stand by that indictment, and I'm very proud of the work that we did.
Thank you.
He said he's proud. The case was dismissed. He was disqualified. Fani Willis was disqualified. The Georgia Court of Appeals said the whole thing was created in an appearance of impropriety. Taxpayers in Fulton County are now staring down a $16.85 million bill that can wipe out the DA's entire operating budget. And Nathan Wade sits there and says he's proud. No wonder him and Fani Willis got along. They had the same energy. No accountability, no self-reflection, no acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, the way they handled this thing is the reason why it fell apart. Instead, he flips it. He said nobody else had enough time to review the evidence. What the translation is, you don't know what we know, so you can't judge us. But that's not how public accountability works. You were paid with public money. You brought public charges. You used public resources. The public gets to judge. And the judgment is in, the case is dead, and the bills are due. The documents show coordination with the White House, the DOJ, and a partisan committee. Your own invoices show meetings that you can't explain. Your qualifications show that you should never have been there in the first place. And the judge just told your former boss that she can't even fight the financial consequences of what you both did. But yeah, be proud, because pride is going to cost the Fulton County taxpayers every dollar that they have in a DH budget. That made a whole lot of sense, didn't it? So these are the moments and more, you can check out the entire hearing itself, that prove that Fani Willis is completely screwed. The qualifications are exposed and the money trail is documented. And neither she nor Nathan Wade has an answer for any of it. So it looks like to me that all those defendants that were prosecuted by Fani Willis are going to get their legal bills paid, at least a portion of it, in my opinion. But let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. Thank you for taking time to watch the video, and I'll see you guys in the next video.